Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 31 of the Renny Show. Good afternoon, Jenny. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Bit tired and starting to feel a bit of a tickly cough, which I think I may have caught from one of the kids. But other than that, very
Oh
good and very
no.
pleased to be here. And I wish I could say the sun was shining. I can see a little bit of blue sky. Can't see the sun quite so much, but it's better than the rain.
Well, yes, it was sunny. It was really sunny here this morning. It was glorious, but now it's clouding over a bit. But you know what?
Yes.
It's not raining, so I'll take that.
Yes, it's an absolute win considering all the rain we've had lately, isn't it? Yeah, I'm with you on that then. Okay, right. So let's get down to the questions. So my first question for you today, Jenny, which has been prompted by something I've seen on social media the last couple of days. Shout out to Maddie Alexander Grout if she's listening, because this is about her. She is, a fantastic entrepreneur helping neurodivergent people in business, and she was rejected from an ADHD entrepreneurs group. And obviously she then posted about it, collaboration over competition always, why would you not let me be a part of something where I can add value? So my question to you is collaboration or competition, and why?
Oh, that's such an easy one for me, Rachel. So very early on in my entrepreneurial self-employed career, I was introduced to the Go-Getter series by Bob Berg and his co-author, whose name I always forget, but I got to know Bob. So
Yeah.
um, they are a series of very short, very little books. If you haven't yet come across them, I highly recommend them. They're called the Go Getter series, and they have a particular book that talks about competition or collaboration. And my gut has always been, um, if you if you come if you look at life from um, an abundance mindset, there's enough to go round for everybody.
Yeah.
So I am interested in what other people who are doing similar things to me are doing, because I'm naturally curious and interested. Um, do I see them as direct competition? No. Why? Because there's only me that does what I do the way I do it. And the
Yes.
people who want to work with me will want to work with me regardless of we always have a choice, don't we? There are
Yeah.
people who always buy Heinz tomato ketchup. There are people who are quite happy buying Sainsbury's own version. Um, and actually I don't I just think it's a complete waste of energy to worry
Yeah.
about competition. I would much rather be um, be in a place where I can know who are people are doing similar things in my field. Um, because actually, if a client isn't right for me, what I want to be able to do is to recommend somebody who is in that
Absolutely.
sphere, and say, I know these people. I know that they are really good at what they do. And actually, I'm really happy to recommend them to you because I know them. So that's a win-win for everybody because at the end of the day, I think I certainly want my clients and those people who aren't right for me to get what they need and to get what they deserve, which
Yeah.
is the best possible fit for them. So that's why I would always choose collaboration over competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And unsurprisingly, I'm definitely the same as you on this one, Jenny. I think there is so much we can learn from our so-called competitors. Everyone has a slightly different approach, and as you've said, you are the only one that does what you do in the way that you do it, and that's the same for all of us. And I think there is always something to be learned from collaborating with each other, learning how different people do things differently, and also the support network that that creates. Because then if you have an issue, you've then got a network of peers, trusted and respected peers that you can speak to for advice. Obviously that's outside of coaching supervision, which is a different thing, but I just always think there's an opportunity there rather than worrying about competition, because people always buy people. We hear this phrase a lot, but it's true. And an individual will gel with a particular coach, and that's absolutely how it should be. But equally, like you've said, to be able to then refer people on to someone else that you trust, because you know them and you've got to know how they work, and you've realized that the client you're working with would get more benefit from working for that person, with that person. Brilliant. I mean, it's not just win-win, it's win-win, win-win.
Win-win.
It's
Win-win, win-win
on all counts. So yeah, absolutely with you on that one. Yeah. Okay, so what's your first question for me?
Well, my first question for you, Rachel, is kind of slightly related to podcasts, but I was coming at it because I've been on annual leave for the last 2 weeks. I was coming at it from a non-working perspective, but it would work from a podcast guest perspective. So my question is, if you could choose anybody to have dinner with, to have as a guest as a dinner party, who would it be?
Ooh, wow. I mean, gosh, there are so many answers I could give there. The first person that springs to mind would have to be Stephen Fry, because I think he's fascinating, he's funny, he is witty, he is clever, he's got some real, the way he puts an argument across, if you like, is always very considered. It's evidence based. I just think, and I can't help but think back to things from my childhood, like him in Jeeves and Wooster, with Hugh Laurie. The pair of them were just so funny. So he would definitely be one of my top choices for a dinner party guest, because I just think he would light up the room, and I'd love to be a part of that, around that energy. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's one of those questions, isn't it? We could ask it more than once, because
Yeah.
there are so many people that you could, and he'd be a great podcast guest, wouldn't
Yeah.
he? So maybe we'll drop him a note.
We'll work on that
See if
one.
he wants.
Yeah.
We'll work on that one, viewers, just to see if there's anybody. And actually, that's a really good opportunity to say to our viewers, listeners, is there anybody that you would particularly like us to ask to be on the show?
Good question.
Because it would be really good to know. We've got some fabulous guests lined up.
We have. Yeah.
For future episodes. But is there anybody you particularly think, oh, do you know, I'd love to hear them on the Renny Show, and we will do our best to make it happen.
Absolutely. Exciting. So who would you choose for the dinner party then?
Well, funny you should say that. So I'm an avid fan of Wimbledon,
Oh yes, me too.
and I have just been obviously watching a lot of tennis in between all the other things we've been doing, and I would love to have dinner with John McEnroe. Um, because and the reason is because one of the many reasons is, again, because he's had a very public growing up, hasn't he?
Yes.
He rose to fame and fortune very early. He didn't always behave well. He had lots of kind of public meltdowns, and I just think the way that he has grown as a
Yeah.
person, and transitioned, because many people, and quite a few of players that I've watched and loved for many years, are retiring or have just retired.
Yeah.
And I think he's made that transition. So from an entrepreneurial point of view, he's done really well, hasn't he? Because
Yeah.
he's made multiple careers. He's done all sorts of things. And he is just the most fantastic commentator to listen to. I love
Yes, he
listening
is.
to him. And again, he's funny. He really knows his stuff. He's interesting. He's not scared of saying what he thinks,
Yeah.
whether that is controversial or not. He says it, and he backs it up. So he always has a reason for why he thinks what he does.
Yeah.
And also, he's a very talented musician. So I was thinking
Yeah.
of after dinner dancing would
Oh,
be
yeah.
quite a good. He'd be a good guest. Yeah, I think he's a very good guitarist. I'm sure that he plays in a band.
Yes,
I
I've
think
heard that
that's right.
too. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, he would be somebody I would very much like to um um have dinner with, or have at a
Yeah.
dinner party.
Yeah. I can totally see why. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So moving on to my next question. A bit of a come down in level of what we're talking about. But what was your least favourite food as a child?
Oh, cooked cauliflower. So I quite I quite like I like vegetables, but I'm fairly ancient. So in the when I was growing up, the um, cooking in the UK and in other parts of the world, I suspect, but cooking particularly in the UK when I was here, because we lived abroad a lot. But when we were here, boiling of the vegetables went on forever. Um, and so I think vegetables were quite mushy. So
Yeah.
al dente wasn't a thing back then. And I loved vegetables, but I didn't like them mushy. So I remember my great aunt being horrified when she was doing Sunday roasts, and I used to ask if she could not cook my cauliflower at all. So I used to have my cauliflower florets raw on the side
Wow.
of on a side plate, rather than those kind of whiffly, um,
Yeah. Limp.
awfully soggy, waterlogged. And she was a good cook. I think it was just that the way that things were done,
Yeah.
back in the day, wasn't it? So yeah, so um, soggy vegetables, not good with sprouts that were cooked from October, that kind of thing. In fact, they were this kind of color, weren't they? When you overcook sprouts, I was
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
of
They
wearing
lose all that
a
nice
shirt
colour,
of
don't they?
overcooked sprout color. What about you? What was your least favorite?
That's an easy one for me. It was meat. I just didn't like the texture of meat right from from when I weaned, and I've got so many memories of Sunday dinners in our house where we were made to sit at the table till we'd finished our dinner. You'll sit there till you've finished, and mum and dad would leave the room even, and oh dear, I can remember falling asleep sometimes almost in my dinner because I just did not want to eat the meat. And of course, when meat then gets cold, it's even
Even
worse.
worse.
It's chewier, and oh yeah. So when I became a vegetarian, it made life a whole lot easier, I have to say.
And it is. I'm so glad to say that the cooking of vegetables has moved on, hasn't it, since I was a
Yes,
child? Um,
which is good news.
moved on immeasurably. So vegetables are now cooked for the right amount of time. So
Yeah,
that helps enormously.
fantastic. Right. So what's your next question?
Well, funny enough, you'd think we'd arranged it. So it's a cooking question. So
Love it.
um, and again, cooking times. So
Oh,
my question, Rachel, is about hard-boiled eggs. As you know, we are in the summer. It's salad season. I
yeah,
do love um cold-boiled eggs in my salad. I love an egg
yeah.
in my salad. I quite like warm boiled eggs in my salad, but I'm a bit weird like that. So my question is, how long do you boil an egg to get it ready for salad? Hard boiled eggs. What's your
Ah,
boiling time?
okay, well, I'm just going to put that question up on the screen. Um, my sort of stock answer is 10 minutes, which, yeah, it depends sometimes how much water you use as to how differently the egg will be cooked in that 10 minutes. But yeah, 10 minutes is my standard to make it hard boiled. In order to eat for cold with salad, albeit like you, I don't mind a warm hard boiled egg on salad. I think that's quite nice. It sort of livens up the coldness of the salad. So
But you want your yolk to be absolutely
yeah,
cooked.
pretty much,
No,
pretty much.
no,
Yeah.
no softy bits in the middle.
Usually only if it's an accident because I haven't put as much water in, or and so it hasn't quite done all of it. Yeah. So what about you?
Hmm. Well, yes, 5. I'm half your time. 5 minutes for
Oh,
me.
okay.
Yeah, so 5 minutes. So 3 minutes, and I think it also depends. This is going to get very technical. A bit. I wonder if people are bored, but I'm always fascinated how people do this because it's how you learn it, isn't it? So I
Yeah.
always put my eggs. So I don't keep my eggs in the fridge because
No,
as a
me neither.
baker, they need to be room temperature.
Yeah.
And when I boil an egg, so the timing's different, isn't it? So if you put the egg in cold water and bring it to the boil and then
Yeah.
boil it, I think it's 2.5 minutes for a soft boiled egg, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, but then obviously if you bring the water to the boil and then put the egg in when
Yeah.
it's boiling, that's a different amount of time. So I was always taught, I think it was my mum, might have been my grandma, but yeah, 2.5 minutes for a soft boiled and 5, double the amount of time for a hard boiled. So yeah,
Ah, interesting. Okay. Because
so that's
I
very different, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I guess again it comes down to what I've been taught. And for me, it's the egg doesn't go in till the water is absolutely madly boiling. I would never
Oh, you
start it
see,
from
so
cold.
maybe that's the difference.
Maybe that is the difference. And if I was doing a soft boiled, I would do it for 4 minutes, maybe three and a half, and then hard boiled 10. So yeah, isn't that interesting? I'm going to have to experiment now with hard
Yeah,
boiled
we're
eggs
gonna
and
have to have a
timings and see
play
what they
and
come out
see.
like.
We'll have a boil off
Yeah,
and see, yeah. And again, that did see what we've learned. You see, it's the difference between putting the egg in when the water's boiling and bringing it up.
yeah,
Same with
yeah,
rice, isn't it?
yeah.
Do you time your rice? So I bring my rice to the boil, from cold, and then I turn it off and let it steam.
Okay, yeah. I must admit, I put mine on from cold. The rice and the water, because it's measured. Equal amounts goes in together and then just gets brought to the boil until it's yeah. And I don't take the lid off. You have to leave it,
Never.
don't you? Don't take the lid
No,
off.
you have to leave the lid. Yeah, yeah. Don't be tempted to lift the lid. Oh well, we would love your boiled egg stories.
Yes, please do share your boiled egg stories.
Yeah.
How long do you do it for? And yeah, I think we're going to have a boil off. Okay, so moving on to the next question. This is something that I think we're all a bit guilty of these days. This little device that we have in our pocket or handbag, or other options are available, um, can take over our lives. So I'm interested to know: could you live without your mobile phone?
The short answer, is yes, of course I could live without my mobile phone. Is the short answer. However, I, hand on my heart, would find it really, really difficult because, as somebody said to me the other day, which I thought was really interesting, they said, "Oh, but it isn't really just your phone, is it? You use it as a mobile office." And
Yeah,
they're absolutely spot on. So they said it's like the computer in your pocket.
yeah,
Um, so, um, could I live without a mobile phone? In terms of a phone, could I contact people in other ways? Would I go back to having a house phone? Yes, I could. I could live with that. Um, could I? could I not, could I not use a mobile phone for its kind of mobile office purposes? I would find that really, really hard, because I love the the ability to be able to, send emails when you're sitting on a bus, for example,
Yeah.
or delayed on a train or whatever. So I do love um I love the immediacy of that. But I also recognise there are, again, and that's been in the last fortnight, not using my phone, because
Yeah.
we've been doing other things and out walking and playing and picnicking and doing things where actually, I've suddenly thought, gosh, my phone battery's hardly hardly,
Yeah.
moved. And it's because 'cause it's been in my pocket, it's been in my bag, and we've been doing other things. So I think there is what I noticed was that downtime and being away from technical devices, is really good for your soul, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something it's really easy for all of us to forget, because like you say, a mobile phone, it's so much more than a phone, isn't it? It's such a useful thing to be able to have. You can conduct your business with it from anywhere. You can call anyone, message anyone from anywhere. You can look up anything you want to on the internet. You can go on all the social media apps. So there's just so many things you can do with it. But I think it's really easy to forget that having a bit of a detox every now and then, having some time away from it, having some time away from social media, or just having a break, that
Mm,
downtime from the hours that we might spend on a phone in a day, is really good. I don't know what the sort of stats are behind it, but obviously we hear a lot about the blue light from phones, and not
yeah.
using it for the hour before bedtime, and try not to make it the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning. Give your brain a break, and I think that's a really important message for all of us, because I'm just as guilty. I don't take breaks often enough from my phone, but I'm much more conscious these days of, if I'm in a room, even if just sat in the living room, and if I notice that all four of us are sat there on devices, I'll be like, oh no, I don't want to do that. No, no.
Mm.
Can we like do something together, or play a game, or watch TV together, or something? Speak, talk. Let's have a conversation. I think there are things that we miss, and I do notice it in the children when they're on devices, or they've got headphones on because they're listening to their music, and they just miss little things that are going on. Or if you want to ask them a question, they don't hear you because they're plugged into the
Mm.
mainframe, as I like to call it. And I just think it's really easy to miss some of the stuff that's actually going on around you, and you stop being present. So I think it's a useful reminder for all of us to have that break, and be in the moment, and be with the people, not just behind a screen. So there you go.
Marvelous. So, my third question, um, for you is, what's the most unlikely gig that you have ever attended?
Okay. Um, I mean, I suppose that's probably a fairly easy win of a question, because I went to one on Sunday with my eldest, which really was not my cup of tea. Not my kind of music at all. Um, so it's not something I would ever have kind of gone to by choice if it wasn't for her love of the band. For anyone that isn't aware of them, they're called Stray Kids. They're a K-pop band, so Korean pop, and the K-pop industry is very much known for, it's boy bands and girl bands, routine dancing, or sort of formation dancing, and yeah, it's not my usual thing. However, um, it's her thing, so we got the tickets for her birthday, And when we've done that before, it's been for bands that I like that genre of music as well. So it's been fine. This one was a very different kettle of fish, but it was still amazing. They still had a live band playing with them who were really good, and they put on a really good show. And I came away thinking, do you know what? I mean, I came to this because of my daughter, not because I specifically wanted to be here. But I came away feeling, well, yeah, that was worth the effort of travelling to London and the rail replacement buses on the Jubilee line, which wasn't much fun, because they really did put on a good show, and it took me back to a time when, I mean, I do like pop music, and I like lots of different types of music. It's not that I don't like pop, it's just that K-pop isn't particularly my thing. But when I was a kid, similar age to her, New Kids on the Block were my favourite pop group, and I can remember going to see them at Wembley Arena, not stadium, and feeling the same as she did, really overwhelmed and emotional because, oh my God, they're right there. Although in our case, we were right at the back of the arena, so they were literally little dots, on a stage. But these moments are important, aren't they? So even though it
definitely
wasn't my kind of thing, to be there and witness how much joy she had in her experience couldn't help but make it a joyful experience for me as well. So yeah, definitely an unlikely gig, but really good in the end. Yeah. So what about you?
Well, I do love live music, and I've been to various gigs over time. But I was invited by a friend's niece to go to see Harry Styles. And I do like some of his music, and I feel a connection with him because my parents and his auntie live in the same village.
Right.
In Cheshire. So they own the local bakery where my
Yeah.
dad gets his buns from.
Oh, nice.
So I thought, I said, like you do, yeah, I'll go. No idea kind of what I was letting myself in for. I
Yeah.
think we raised the average age by about 100 years. But what I loved about it, and Feather Bow was Harry, his thing, this tour was Feather Bow. So there was feathers everywhere.
Yeah.
The whole of Wembley Stadium looked like a kind of rainbow ostrich had been molting for
Wow.
several years.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful. And what I loved about it, it was an unlikely gig. What I loved about it was he's just brilliant with the audience. He's just great with the audience. And that it was a long tour he was doing. So I kept thinking, gosh, you must be exhausted. But the energy that he brought, and he looked like he was having the time of his life.
Yeah.
And even if it was the 900th time he'd sung this song on a different stage, and Tuesday it must be Belgium, and went all over the place.
Yeah.
He absolutely he looks like he was just having the time of his life.
Yeah.
And um it was just, the atmosphere was so positive. It was all about love and joy and connection, and it was just sublime. And I had an absolute ball. And it rained on the way, and it's quite a long walk when there's
Yeah.
how many 100,000 of you walking from this Wembley Stadium, isn't it, to this
Yeah.
tube station. And it was, what I remember was, it was raining, um, and everybody was getting wet, but everybody was joyful and singing. So we
Yeah.
sang all the way
Oh,
back to
that's
the tube
brilliant.
station. And it was lovely, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And so yes, it was, sometimes the most unlikely gigs are the ones that you really enjoy, because I don't know whether it's you have lower expectations, or you're just going along to
Yeah.
see. But I loved it, and I would go again
Yeah.
if I was
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah. Same for Stray Kids. Yeah. And what you say about
Yeah.
Harry looking like he's having the time of his life, I think that's one of the things that can make live music so magical when
Mm,
an act clearly looks like they're enjoying it too. They're getting a lot of joy
absolutely.
from it. It's not just that they're there to perform because they've been told to and they're being paid to. They actually want to. I think that
And
really
also
comes
that
across.
they remember I went to see a very well-known band who actually didn't interact with their audience at all. I'd paid a lot of money to go to the gig and didn't enjoy it. Um,
Mm,
and it was because there was very little interaction with the audience. And I wanted to say to them, remember who put you where you
yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, never forget your audience because they're the people who, and I wouldn't ever go and see them live again. Um, they're not together anymore, so it doesn't matter. But it was that thing about, I think, that interaction with the audience,
yeah.
the liveness of the gift is so that's what sets people apart, isn't it? The
Yeah,
people who
it makes you
there are
feel
many
part
bands,
of it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. There are good bands, because that's the good bands to see live, and it's
yeah,
because of the way that they interact with the audience.
yeah.
Definitely.
Love it. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the show. But before we go anywhere, Jenny, do tell us about our very exciting guest that we've got on the 31st of July.
Well, we have got the most fabulous Ryan Parke coming to see us for a conversation. For those of you who don't know Ryan, he talks brilliantly about men's health.
Yeah,
And he has a very different take, on men's health and men's mental health. Um, Brilliantly evidence-based,
yeah,
fabulously interesting, and really he has a deep knowledge and a deep understanding, and he's a brilliant, brilliant guy. So if you aren't already connected with Ryan, I would highly recommend that you at least visit his website or connect with him on LinkedIn or Facebook, because he is amazing. Um, and I am very, very excited. I have
yes,
heard him speak a few
yes,
times,
likewise.
in different places, and he's so cool. He's so cool. I'm very excited that he agreed to come and chat with us.
Yeah, definitely. I've only heard him speak the once, but he was really engaging, and he's just got some such interesting things to say, and like you say, a different take, different spin to the message that a lot of people are putting out there about men's health. So yeah, I think it's going to be an absolutely fascinating conversation. So do join us on the
It is.
31st at 12:30 prompt live. We will be here with Ryan, and we can't wait. Right, well, that brings us to the end of the show. So thank you very much if you've joined us, and we hope to see you again. Don't forget that we like to carry on the conversation, so do tell us how you boil your eggs. If you've listened to the whole episode, that will make sense. And if you've got questions that you'd like to ask us, do send them in, because we'd love to be able to ask your questions live on air as well. So thank you, Jenny. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you, Rachel. And let's hope. Apparently, the weather is to get a little bit better. We wouldn't be British, would we, if we didn't talk about the weather?
Yeah,
So we started talking about the weather. We'll finish talking about the weather. I think school holidays are approaching,
rapidly.
with with great speed. And I know that for working parents that can be a bit tricky. So we wish you. Please listen to the Renny Show, to keep your positivity high. And
Absolutely.
and if there's any hints or tips that you have got for getting through the school holidays, we'd love to hear them. So thank you so much for listening, wherever you are doing it. If you're listening on replay or watching on replay, thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Until then, be brilliant, be inspired, and take good care.
Bye.
Bye for now.